What up, everybody? What up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of AC Reviews the World. I am your host, AC the Engineer, and we are at episode 187. Yes, 187. Hopefully, everybody had a good day today. It is Wednesday, May 13th, 2026, year of our Lord. Always got to tell about God. But hopefully, everybody had a good day today. Welcome back to the greatest afternoon show in the world. We're getting closer and closer. If y'all don't know, I've been on a little strike lately, so YouTube ain't pushing my stuff. But hey, it's almost over. It's almost over. But you know, we cannot miss. I try to meet Monday through Friday, starting at 6 o'clock. We didn't get to meet yesterday. I had some personal stuff to do, but we are back with 4 more topics that we need to discuss. Now, remember, the best way to show your support is always just to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you can be up to date on all the videos, y'all. And the best way to reach out to me if you want to is you can always just reach out to me at my email address. It's acreviewstheworld@gmail.com, a dot after the A and a dot after the C. But you know how I like to do it. Let's jump right into it. The first topic we got to get over in today is that we finally have some charges coming from the key bridge collapse that happened in Baltimore. They ended up killing 6 people. So we feel like we finally have some people getting charged. Let's get over to it and see what this whole thing is about, who is getting charged. And hopefully we'll hear exactly what they're getting charged with. Let's jump into it, y'all.
We are following breaking news out of Capitol Hill. The Senate has confirmed Kevin Warsh to be a governor on the Federal Reserve Board in a 51-45 vote. Here's what that means. It means lawmakers will now take a procedural that crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key based on criminal charges against the Singapore-based operator. Federal prosecutors have announced criminal charges against the Singapore-based operator of the ship that crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge 2 years ago. 6 people died in that incident. Let's go to CBS News correspondent Chanel Call, who's live in our newsroom once again today. So, Chanel, what is in this indictment?
Right, and I have the indictment right here, Murdaugh. I was here in the newsroom 2 years ago when this story broke. I was actually working overnight and early morning anchoring the 4 a.m. show here at CBS when that video came out. You can see it here. And I remember as soon as we saw that video, we knew that something terrible had happened. We knew this was going to be a big story. Today, 2 years later, we're now seeing federal prosecutors announce in this indictment charges against the company that operated that ship that day, that lost control, that killed 6 people, and that also took down the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Take a listen to part of the press conference they held today.
In the early morning hours of March 26th of 2024, the motor vessel Dolly crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge, tragically killing 6 people and causing catastrophic damage to our region. Today, the United States unsealed an indictment charging 3 defendants: Synergy Marine Private Limited, Synergy Maritime Private Limited, and Radha Krishnan Karthik Nair with crimes related to the disaster, including conspiracy, violations of the Ports and Waterways Safety Act, misconduct or neglect of ship officers resulting in death, and obstruction, among others.
And also, Murdaugh, at that press conference today was a person named Jimmy Paul. He's a special agent in charge of the FBI Baltimore field office. And he said, quote, "The collapse should have never happened. Those responsible for the ship's operation deliberately cut corners at the expense of safety." As for the parties involved here, Synergy and Nair, CBS News has reached out for comment and not heard back yet.
Wow. Now, my main thought is I wonder if their companies have to foot some of the bill. I'm assuming they have to, in either the insurance or something. Money has to get paid because bridges are expensive. More expensive than most things, just because of the time it takes and the engineering and all the just background stuff that it takes. Not just the construction of it, but everything that goes into place of constructing one. But let's go over into one more video and see if it tells us anything different.
2 years after the deadly collapse of Baltimore's Key Bridge, the Justice Department has filed criminal charges against the operator of the cargo ship that crashed into it. claiming the company ignored safety issues and lied to investigators. Prosecutors allege Synergy Marine failed to address long-standing problems on the Dolly. They claim the use of improper fuel pumps crippled the ship's ability to restore steering power after 2 blackouts.
The indictment alleges that if the Dolly had been using the proper fuel supply pumps, then the vessel would have regained power in time to safely navigate under the Key Bridge.
The ship slammed into a supporting column of the bridge, causing it to collapse, killing 6 construction workers who'd been filling potholes. The sole survivor clung to a piece of steel in the water after escaping his work truck through its manual windows. The indictment also claims the company and the ship's technical supervisor falsified inspection records.
If the DOJ wouldn't have found what was going on and brought these charges, we would have never seen the purposeful destruction of materials, the purposeful hiding of what really caused this tragedy.
Synergy denies the allegations, saying the NTSB identified the probable cause of the incident was a loss of electrical power due to a loose signal wire connection, a defect outside of Synergy Marine's control. The indictment comes on the same day Maryland reached a $2 billion settlement with Synergy and the owner of the ship.
The new Key Bridge is expected to cost up to $5 billion and won't open until late 2030.
Absolutely crazy. And we are happy that we have some responsibility being had, but they said that they were lying about the records. And why would any country lie about the records? Money. That's the biggest thing. If they don't report it, then they don't have to get the problems fixed. But let's get over into the AI breakdown just to see if we can find out a little bit more information about this whole case. So as we know, let's get over into it. So the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed on March 26, 2024 after being struck by a container ship. The disaster killed 6 construction workers, temporarily paralyzed the port, and has triggered a massive federal criminal indictment and a $2.25 billion state settlement. So the collision happened at approximately 1:29 p.m. on March 26. The ship struck Pier 17 at a critical support column, causing a continuous steel truss bridge to buckle and plummet into the river. We know that 6 overnight workers ended up dying. The 7th worker survived by plunged into the river, and a bridge inspector narrowly escaped. Traffic was halted on the bridge just 30 seconds before the impact after the ship's crew issued a last-minute mayday call, preventing mass citizen casualties. 30 seconds before. So the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed an 18-count criminal indictment against the ship operator Sydney Marine Group and Synergy Maritime. The technical superintendent, I'm not even going to try to say that name, Fedge alleged that the operator deliberately cut corners, engaging in conspiracy, falsifying safety records, and lying to investigators. While the initial blackout stemmed from a loose wire, a second faulty blackout occurred because the ship was improperly using unapproved fuel flushing pumps. The pumps required a manual restart that the crew failed to execute quickly enough. Indictments state that the company management actively concealed the faulty flushing pump system from the U.S. Coast Guard and safety inspectors. So that is the main reason that they are getting in trouble now. I'm assuming, because you know how any kind of business works as a business at the end of the day, that they wanted to save a few bucks, which in the grand scheme of things didn't help them at all. Save a few bucks and then risk the safety of other people. They hid falsified records, and that's what happened where we ended up losing 6 people. Maryland state settlement. So the state of Maryland finalized a massive $2.25 billion civil settlement with the owner and operator to cover environmental damages, lost toll revenue, and economic losses. The Department of Justice previously secured a separate $130 $3 million settlement from the vessel's interest. The state continued to pursue claims against the shipbuilder who the National Transport Safety Bureau partially faulted for the power loss. A major civil liability trial to evaluate the remaining victims and business claims is slated. So the port recovery. So it's fully open 11 weeks after the collapse. So here's the craziest part. So I said a bridge is very expensive. So estimated rebuild cost has ballooned between $5 billion and $9 billion, according to the Maryland Transportation Authority. Now remember, it's cost a lot, and then two, what's happening now? Inflation. So everything that used to cost a little bit, or in the grand schemes of things, a little bit to them, is ballooning out of control. And the replacement will be a cable-stayed bridge spanning over 2 miles with a completion project for late 2030. It says that the daily traffic is over 34,000 vehicles. Wow. But we finally have someone we can blame for it. It took the lives of 6 workers who were working overnight, thinking that they would get to go home to their families. A seventh person, luckily, was able to get out of his car, but 6 people lost their lives, and it could have been way more. Absolute crazy situation, y'all. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. When companies try to save money, it ends up hurting them in the long run, especially when they're trying to cut corners. And this company had the worst outcome it could. Down billions of dollars. And you lost 6 people, or killed 6 people. But let's pivot over into the next topic we're going to be discussing today. And we got to go over into a weird topic that I wasn't expecting to see to pop up. We have a mayor, who was this? California mayor, who ends up pleading guilty for being an agent of the Chinese government. Ooh, the world is a crazy place, y'all. Let's get over into this and see if we can find out about this. Now, what exactly does that mean? Agent of the Chinese government? Spy? Was she doing everything just to further the Chinese government agenda? What exactly did she do? And how did they find it out? But let's get over into it and see what we can find out, y'all.
Listen to this. Arcadia, California Mayor Eileen Wang agreeing to plead guilty after being charged with acting as an agent for the Chinese government. DOJ says from 2020 through 2022, Eileen and her then fiance ran a website called U.S. News Center that branded itself as a news source for Chinese Americans. Wang resigning after the charge, quote, "The decision is personal in nature and does not reflect my love and commitment to Arcadia, which will always remain strong. But when confronted by our affiliate to give her residents an answer, Eileen refused."
Excuse me, Miss Wong. Can we speak with you about these allegations? Is there anything you want to say to constituents?
Political strategist, lawyer, and someone who lived in China for years, Katie Zachariah joins me now. Katie, U.S. Attorney Bill Assaley said it should, quote, terrify Americans that she was able to rise to the highest levels of local office. So, Katie, how the heck did that happen?
Well, if you go out to Arcadia, which I visited a number of times, it's basically become Little China. And I don't mean the cute San Francisco Chinatown that we all were familiar with. This actually feels like a version of Beijing. And what do I mean by that? They don't speak English. They eat completely like local Chinese food that they source right from China. And honestly, you'd be hard pressed to find any English speaking people in the whole vicinity of the San Gabriel Valley. Valley, which has essentially been taken over by the Chinese. And I don't actually mean that hyperbolically, Todd. I mean that because I've lived in China. I go to Arcadia to get local Chinese food and maybe refresh my Mandarin, but it doesn't feel like the United States. So it's no surprise to me that we had someone who was acting on behalf of Beijing as a foreign agent running Arcadia, because the place feels like China.
You lived in China. You know how the CCP operates. Katie, is this just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Americans being tricked into allowing, quite frankly, for lack of a better phrase, Chinese spies to infiltrate our government at the local, state, and federal level?
Now, this is a wild situation. But I want to know exactly what she was actually doing, because they mentioned that she was running a news channel. What was she reporting on? Was she only... Why? And then the weirdest part is the fact that she didn't want to answer or make any statements to her constituents. But let's keep going into this.
Yes, Todd, and with these sanctuary jurisdictions similar to California, there needs to be a wholesale review of not just legal permanent residents, but people who are here from adversarial countries. We just had, for instance, an Iranian arms dealer living just down the road from me, whose green card needs to be reevaluated by USCIS under the Department of Homeland Security. There has to be a complete takedown of these green card holders, and they need to be sent back home. This woman, Eileen Wong, she's only getting 10 years. That's actually kind of offensive as a United States citizen. This person was acting as a foreign agent on behalf of the CCP, Todd. There should be no grace. They literally should be sent back to the People's Republic of China.
So concerning. And you have to think, if this is happening in one town in California, it could be happening in others, because I hate to bring up Mr. Swalwell because he's no longer in the California governor's race, but the leader on the Democratic side was tied to a Chinese spy, and I think that tells you everything you need to know.
Now she did mention she needs to be deported. Does she not want her facing the 10 years, or does she want her just immediately to get sent back? Because if she's truly working as a Chinese agent, what are they're not going to do anything to her. It's a weird situation here.
From one coast to the other, happening today, the House back in session for the first time.
That's a crazy situation. Now, let's go over into just the AI breakdown just to see what else we can find out about it. So as we know, we got California Mayor Eileen Wang resigned and pleaded guilty to a federal charge of covertly acting as an unregistered agent for the Chinese government. So she's 58 years old, and she was charged with one count of acting in the United States as an illegal alien of a foreign government. The single felony count carries a maximum penalty of up to 10 years. The operation, so according to the Department of Justice, late 2020 through 2022, she operated a local Chinese American community news website called U.S. News Center. At the direction of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Wang used the platform to spread pro-Beijing propaganda. This included publishing articles that denied the genocide and forcing labor of these different provinces. Whoa. So she was trying to push a different message. So the court documents revealed that Wang received instructions and praise from the Chinese officials via WeChat app. In one instance, a Chinese official praised her speed, to which she replied, "Thank you, leader." Yeah, that sounds like a spy to me. I don't know. Like, how can we let somebody run an office when she sees another country's government as her leaders? They could have told her to do anything. I mean, you can go to the worst of some terrorism acts, but they could have asked her to do anything if she sees them as her leader. The city has confirmed that Wang's illegal cooperation with the Chinese handlers ceased after she was elected to city council in December 2022. Hold on. It's still weird that so she didn't do anything when she was elected to the city council. So we got co-conspirators. We got Mike's son, co-conspirators. We got Mike's son, Wang's former fiance and campaign treasurer, was sentenced in February for 4 years in prison for his role in the operation. A high-level Chinese figure, so John Chen, who communicated with Wang, was sentenced to 20 months in federal prison in November 2024 for acting as an illegal agent and bribing an official. Wang was elected to the Arcadia City Council in 2022, a body where members fill the role of a mayor on rotation basis. She took over the mayor in early 2026 before stepping down immediately following Monday's indictment. So the internal city review confirmed that no city's finances, staffs, or decision-making process were compromised by her actions. The Arcadia City Council selected a new mayor and discussed district representation at the upcoming meeting. Wow. Now, so she did do. So I want to know if she took orders from the Chinese government after 2022. Because it is still a crazy fact that they could let someone be who has ties like that close ties, to be a mayor. So yes, according to the federal prosecutors, her plea agreement, she coveted activities for the Chinese government ceased after late 2022. So it only happened between late 2020 through 2022, and she was elected in December 2022. It's still crazy. So that is the state that we live in, y'all. That is the state of the world we live in. We have someone who was a foreign agent doing things on behalf of the Chinese government. And she was elected a mayor at one point. Elected mayor. Absolutely crazy situation, y'all. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you've heard of this. How do you feel about it? 10 years. That's what she can get up to in sentencing. Is that too much? Is that too little? What are your thoughts on that situation, y'all? Absolutely crazy. But we got to pivot over into our next topic, and it's more craziness. Absolutely more craziness. And we got to go over to Alex Murdaugh. If you don't know who that is, it's a crazy case where he was charged in court, convicted in court for killing his wife and son. But most recently, the Supreme Court, South Carolina Supreme Court, has ruled to overturn the double murder conviction and life sentence of him because they are saying that the trial was unfair, unjust. So they have to retry him. Now let's get over into this. We got a few videos to look at. And then, of course, we'll go over into the AI breakdown just to find out a little bit more information on this whole case. But let's jump over into it and see what we can find out, y'all.
Hi, I'm Diana Macedo. We have breaking news. The South Carolina Supreme Court is overturning Alex Murdaugh's double murder conviction. A jury found Murdaugh guilty of murdering his wife and son in 2021. But the state Supreme Court just found a court clerk interfered with the jury by attacking Murdaugh's credibility. ABC's Andrew Dimbert and ABC News legal contributor Bernardo Villalona are here with more on what that means for the case now. Andrew, what's the latest here?
Well, this is a stunning decision here. And of course, this trial captivated all the minds and watchers on streamers and Netflix with the documentary. This is a very high-profile case here. The South Carolina Supreme Court now throwing out Alex Murdaugh's murder conviction and ordering a new trial. Murdaugh was convicted in 2023 of killing his wife Maggie and son Paul, but now the state Supreme Court unanimously deciding to toss the conviction, the high court finding that the county clerk, Becky Hill, improperly influenced jurors during the high-profile trial. According to the court's opinion just released, Hill made comments like, "Don't be fooled" by Murdaugh's defense, and told them to watch his behavior closely while he testified. Murdaugh's attorneys have long argued that jury tampering tainted the verdict. However, a lower court had previously denied their request for a new trial, a decision now reversed by the state's highest court. But Murdaugh is not a free man here. He won't be walking out of prison anytime soon. The former attorney also pleaded guilty to stealing around $12 million from his clients, and he's currently serving a 40-year federal sentence, but still looks like on the murder trial he's going to get a new trial here, according to the state Supreme Court, reversing that conviction.
Bernard.
Okay. So he is still in prison, 40 years in the federal court system, but some people are very upset about it. Let's keep going.
What do you make of this decision?
This is definitely a huge blow for the prosecution, but this is not one that I'm surprised of what happened, because when you're talking about fundamental fairness, when you're talking about that every person is entitled to a fair trial, and that jurors should not be impacted by outside comments or things that are going out outside of the courtroom. For example, this is why the jury was actually sequestered, to try to prevent their verdict from being influenced from outside factors. So I think it was the right decision, because the verdict was impacted by comments that was made by Ms. Hill.
And Bernardo, Murdaugh will remain in prison due to those separate convictions on financial crimes. So what are the next steps for him?
So the next steps for him is that the prosecution office will have to determine whether they are going to retry him, because since he's already serving a federal sentence of 40 years, and because of his age, it's technically life that he's serving, it may be the decision of the prosecutor's office not to retry him. But given that it is a homicide trial, the prosecutor, I believe, should be retrying him. So next steps in terms of a trial is going to look completely different than the trial that we saw years ago, because the Supreme Court has already ruled that a lot of that financial crime evidence should not go forward in a new trial. So we're talking about new jurors and also a new presentation of the evidence that can impact a new trial.
All right, it'll be an interesting one. Andrew Dimbert, Bernardo Violona, thank you.
Absolutely crazy situation, y'all. Let's go over into this next video and see what else we can find out about it. Absolutely wild. So let's get over into
it. Do you think in this new trial that Alec Murdaugh, that his lawyers will opt to put him on the stand once again?
That's a great question. And let's just go back a little bit, because we don't even know if there's going to be a new trial. I'm going to go on the record saying there will be. Everybody who could have any influence weighing in on demanding a new trial and trying him a second time has already said they will, regardless of who gets elected in, who's out, etc. So let's just go on the idea that the prosecutors will, in fact, ask for a new trial. Will they do something different? Maybe. And I only say that, Nicole, because I thought he was very compelling on the stand. I actually thought he did a really good job on the stand. But then Becky Hill came in and said to the jurors, watch his body language and make sure you listen closely. That really diminished what he did on the stand. So I don't know if Dick Harpootlian and his gang, Jim Griffin, et cetera, are going to suggest he take the stand again. But I will tell you what won't end up in the next trial, and that is the bulk of the financial information that they spent, 12 plus hours going over, all of his financial crimes. They just loaded that stuff on. And in the jurisprudence speak of courts, that's called prejudicial. And they agreed, the Supreme Court agreed, that all that testimony about his financial crimes should not have actually been brought into the murder trial, at least not all of it, maybe some of it, but not all of it.
Okay, and so again, you just mentioned.
I mean, it makes sense to me, because none of that had to do with the case that they were trying. They were going after him for being a murderer of his wife and son. They weren't going after him for financial crimes. Maybe if some of them have him like paying for stuff associated with the murders, and yeah, you can use his financial records. But now you're just feeding that and telling the jury how bad he is, and they already got an image of him in his mind. in their minds. But let's keep going.
What the Supreme Court agreed with. This went all the way up to the South Carolina Supreme Court, which in its ruling acknowledged that, quote, time, money, and effort was expended for what did turn out to be a lengthy trial. So again, we are assuming that this does in fact go to trial a second time. Do you think there will be just as much, time, effort, and money expended on a second trial, if not more potentially, the second time around?
Well, it's going to be hard, right? Because now voir dire has to include, did you follow the last trial and the trial result? And that's going to be tricky, but it's not impossible. I always say if you can get a jury for O.J. Simpson, you can get a jury for anybody, regardless of that jury. So, yeah, I think they're going to have to spend a fair bit of money doing a lot of voir dire and getting the right jury in place, somebody who it doesn't mean that they can't have seen anything. You're never going to find people like that, or rarely. And they might not be your peers if they live under a rock like that. It's really the standard of whether they can be fair and whether they can take in all the information and be fair. So I think they're going to be able to find a jury, but now it's a matter of how long will the trial be, because a lot of that 12 hours of financial testimony, that's going to be out. They're not going to be able to bring that stuff in. And if he doesn't take the stand, I can't remember how long he was on the witness stand for, but it was long, that you can also cut those days off as well. But I mean, what a fascinating turn of events at a time when many of us were saying, are you kidding me? This clerk should never have done that. This is unfair. This is a travesty of justice. And yet the judge said, nope, we can move on. This is all curative.
Yeah, that certainly did surprise a lot of people. Ashley, I want to go back to something you were talking.
Now, I wonder if the judge should be held responsible, because she let it happen. She let it go on, even though it was obvious to some people. I didn't follow the case too much, but it was obvious to some people that it wasn't being a fair trial, and that's the whole point of the United States government and the jury system is for it to be fair. But let's keep going.
Talking about the seating a jury, being that he was found guilty, being that this trial did get so much publicity. I mean, how difficult do you think it will be to seat a fair jury?
It's hard. I'm not going to lie. Look, we've all lived through Casey Anthony. I've said it before, OJ. In the advent of cable news and the internet and social media, a lot of information is shared these days, and true crime podcasting, like Drop Dead Serious, is very popular. So a lot of people, shameless plug, are really following this genre. But it doesn't mean that you can't be fair. I've volunteered for jury duty. I am that person. I have often said I could be very fair, even though I'm in the business of true crime. It just takes the right people, and it's not a matter of having seen it. It's a matter of reading their signs and actually doing a little investigating on the jurors when you're doing voir dire to figure out if you've got somebody who truly can put aside what they have heard and seen and be fair and just assess the evidence that they're given in that trial.
Thank you for watching.
Absolutely crazy situation that's happening right now, but a lot of people expected it to happen, or a lot of people felt it should happen. Now let's get over into the AI breakdown just to see if we can bring all this together. So as we know, on May 13th, 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court unanimously overturned the double murder conviction and life sentence of disgraced former attorney Alex Murdaugh. The state's highest court ruled that Murdaugh was denied a fair trial due to the shocking jury tampering and external influence by the county clerk, Becky Hill. And the South Carolina Attorney General Office has vowed to aggressively seek and retrial as soon as possible. So the Supreme Court ruled that the former clerk of court, Becky Hill, inappropriately influenced the jury to secure a guilty verdict in an effort to boost sales for her self-authored books, Behind the Doors of Justice, the Murdaugh murder. Oh, no, she did it for money. Not surprising. We got the improper comments, so Hill told juries to watch his body language closely and explicitly suggested his testimony could not be trusted, removing his presumption of innocence before deliberation begins. The justices also held the original trial judge allowed the prosecutors to go far too deep into his unrelated financial crimes, causing unfair prejudice among the jurors. So despite the overturned murder charge, he will not be released. He is currently serving decades-long sentence, 27 years in state prison and 40 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to stealing millions of dollars from his law firm and former clients. South Carolina Attorney General stated his office will retry Murdaugh for the 2021 murder of his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul, at their hunting estate. He resigned, subsequently pleaded guilty to multiple criminal charges, including perjury, obstruction, and misconduct in the offing stem from her actions during and after the 2023 trial. Wow. So the timeline of the whole saga, let's just run through this real quickly. On June 7, 2021, we had Maggie and Paul are found shot to death near their dog kennel at the family's 17,000-acre estate. He is forced out of his law firm for siphoning millions of dollars from clients. Days later, he orchestrates a botched roadside assisted suicide shooting to secure a life insurance payout for his surviving son. Whoa, I didn't even know that. Following a highly publicized 6 weeks trial, a jury finds him guilty of 2 counts of murder. He is sentenced to life term. So his defense team filed for a new trial presenting evidence of Hill's jury tampering. Hill's book is pulled from publication due to plagiarism and ethics investigation, and the South Carolina Supreme Court officially vacates the murder convictions and orders a completely new trial. Now, the biggest question, like they were saying before, will they actually go through and retrial them? How long it would take? What exact evidence do they have? Because I don't think they had any DNA or anything like this. But what exact evidence are they going to bring up? How long would it take, and how much money are they going to spend to do it? Because remember, at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers who are paying the money. But let me know your thoughts on that situation, y'all. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. We're going to pivot now over into our next topic we're going to be discussing today. And we should have enough time for a fifth. But today, we got to go over to a weird cause of death. I don't know how you want to say it, but we got a man who has ended up killing in a Massachusetts escalator. A man who was ended up being killed by a Massachusetts escalator. How you get killed by an escalator? I don't know, but let's get over into it. We got a few videos to look at, and then of course we'll go over to the AI breakdown. Let's jump into it and see what we can find out about this whole case, y'all.
I'd like to find out where they were. To lose my son because nobody was doing their job, I'd like to know why. Because it infuriates me.
Tonight, an exclusive from our NBC 10 investigators. A Boston family is searching for answers and demanding accountability from the MBTA. They want to know how their loved one died after he was trapped at the bottom of an escalator inside a Somerville T station. Good evening, everyone. I'm Colton Bradford.
And I'm Priscilla Casper. NBC 10 investigator Ryan Kath obtained video of this incident and spoke with family members about their loss. Ryan.
And Priscilla, the video you're about to see might be difficult to watch. It shows crucial minutes passed before anyone alerted first responders. The footage also reveals the public had plenty of opportunities to step in and possibly save his life.
You're watching surveillance video from the MBTA's Davis station in Somerville. The person riding the escalator is Stephen McCluskey. These are the final moments of the 40-year-old's life.
The fact that his death could have been prevented or avoided, and it wasn't, I want to know why.
Shannon Flaherty is Stephen's younger sister. Mary is his mom. Together they sat down with us inside their family home in South Boston to talk about the talented carpenter and father of 2 boys.
He loved building things, loved his children, loved being a dad.
But in recent years, they described how Stephen was struggling.
He was dealing with addiction. You know, he did his best every single day to show up for the people that he loved. in the ways that he could.
Just before 5 a.m. on February 27th, Stephen stepped on the escalator and headed toward the subway platform. But at the bottom, watch as Stephen loses his balance and falls. He would never get back up.
Now, I was initially thinking he was either drunk or something like that just by his movements. So it looks like he fell off the wagon and tripped and ended up dying or sucked into that. Let's keep going, though.
The family remembers getting the call from the hospital.
What's going through your mind?
I pretty much froze. You can't describe it. There's just no words.
Going through my head that whole time was just like, am I going to see my brother again?
All they knew was there had been a horrific accident involving an escalator. They had no idea of what unfolded in the video you're about to see.
I can only imagine there were so many questions going through your head.
Well, I just don't understand why nobody would help. Like, nobody would stop. Where was security? Where were the red coats that are supposed to be on all the floors from the time it opens to the time it closes? How does a busy train station and nobody stop? Nobody see him?
It turns out plenty of people did see Stephen that morning. Less than a minute after he fell, a passenger spots him from the top of the escalator, and then after taking the stairs, looks like he briefly tries to help Stephen before continuing to the subway gates. You then see Stephen flailing his legs as he tries to free himself. A steady procession line of T-riders follows, with some people briefly staring at the person at the bottom of the moving escalator, others barely giving a glance as they stroll by. A larger group reverses course on the escalator before gathering around Stephen at the bottom, with one pulling on his legs. Roughly 18 minutes after he fell, a 911 call the NBC 10 investigators obtained finally alerts first responders.
He's at the bottom of the down escalator.
And is the escalator moving?
Yes, he's laid out flat down with his head on the bottom step. I can't even tell. I saw him when I was getting at the top of the escalator.
More than 22 minutes had passed by the time a T-worker appears on the screen, walks up and presses the emergency stop button.
I don't find that acceptable. That's way too long.
Robert Cotton is an escalator expert with 4 decades of experience. He used to oversee the equipment for the public transit system in the Bay Area of California.
They have to have the highest standard of care. They breach that duty. They have a duty to maintain that. If somebody had knowledge of it, that should have been acted upon immediately.
Now this is this how people are? Now the first dude, the very first one. He saw him, noticed him. He went down there, tried to help him, couldn't help him, and then just left. Not making an attempt. I'm assuming he didn't call 911. I'm assuming he wasn't him. Because 18 minutes after he fell. You had other people try to help him, didn't, couldn't. You got people who looked at him, just walked right past. Just like he's another man on the street. This man is laying there dying on the ground. Would you have done differently? Let's keep going into this.
Statement, the T called the incident a terrible accident and told us MBTA personnel respond swiftly to all emergencies and do everything they can to assist individuals and secure the situation. When first responders arrived, they found Stephen without a pulse and his clothing pulled tight, cutting off the airway in his throat. They also discovered the skin from his back had been pulled into the escalator, and at one point thought the machine would have to be dismantled just to free Stephen. A half hour after responding to the station, EMS workers finally carried Stephen out on a stretcher and loaded him into an ambulance. An NBC 10 photojournalist captured the departure to Mass General Hospital, where Stephen would pass away 10 days later.
I would like to see.
I would too.
Marion Shannon had never seen the video of Stephen's final moments until we met them for this interview.
That's not something I want to show the parents. Not me, but the world is a crazy place.
And they just walk by.
The footage, difficult to comprehend.
I just can't believe it.
And I want to make sure that, there's somebody or something held accountable for the fact that my brother wasn't protected in a public space.
But beyond getting answers from the T, the family feels a broader sense of purpose for speaking about their tragic loss.
Why is it so important for you that people know about your son and that the public in general gets answers to how something like this happened.
Well, because he was a somebody. He had a life. We loved him. They treated him like he didn't exist. Nobody cared. Nobody stopped. Nobody took the time to help, to make sure he was okay. If somebody took that minute, he would be here today. So it's important that people realize that people belong to somebody else. And just 1 minute of your time could save that person. And nobody chose to do that.
So tonight, the big takeaway for the public is that these emergency stop buttons are prominently displayed. Anyone can push one of them if you see someone caught in an escalator. That could have made all the difference for Stephen. A spokesperson for the Middlesex DA's office confirmed there's an open investigation into exactly what happened, with investigators awaiting a ruling from the medical examiner on the cause and manner of death. We'll, of course, keep following this for.
Emergency stop. Now, that definitely was in their face. Right when there was a few people, I think it was two or three groups of people who tried to help him, ultimately failed and just, I'm assuming, went about their day, didn't even mention it to no one else. But there was definitely an emergency stop. And then they didn't even bother to call the police. It says a lot about the people who saw this. That might say a lot about the human being in general. Let's get over into the AI breakdown just to see if it tells us any more information about this whole tragic case. So as we know, let's get over into it. 40-year-old Stephen, father of two, died after becoming trapped in the bottom of an escalator. Early morning, so it happened on February 27th. He fell and became caught in the mechanism at the base of the descending escalator. Surveillance footage uncovered by NBC shows that over a dozen commuters passed by him for minutes without assisting. A group of people eventually stopped to help and dialed 911 18 minutes after the fall. An MBTA employee stopped the machinery 22 minutes into the ordeal. Now, I've seen the emergency stop button every time I've gone on an escalator. So my initial thoughts would be to press, if somebody's stuck, press the button. But I guess that just doesn't register with a lot of people. So he suffered severe injuries and passed away in the hospital 10 days later. The district attorney is managing an active and open investigation into the case. Authorities are currently awaiting the final cause of death reports from the medical examiner. And then, the family, of course, is demanding transparency and a full accountability from the transit agency regarding safety protocols and oversight. Good question. What is their protocol on who's supposed to be watching the escalators? Is there supposed to be intervals of when somebody comes by and checks? Or is it just that they get to it when they get to it? What is the procedure for this type of thing or for these equipments? Now, I did have a question. Is the family going to do a lawsuit? So as of May 2026, no formal civil lawsuit has been filed by the family. However, his family has retained legal counsel and is publicly demanding accountability. The family is working with investigators and demanding full transparency. His mother publicly condemned the transit environment after viewing surveillance footage, stating that the public and transit system treated him like he did not exist. They treated him like he was a homeless man on the side of the road. And I gotta admit, sometimes I don't even pay attention. Homeless man on the side of the road. I feel like if I look at them, they're gonna ask me for something. So I've gotten into the habit of just walking forward. But someone was actively trapped, looked like they were struggling, or looked like something is wrong. There was only a few people who actually came by and tried to do something, but even if they did try to do something and failed, they didn't call the police after that. So legal experts note that the former wrongful death lawsuit typically follows the conclusion of the active district court criminal investigation and official rulings on the case cause of death from medical examiners. Now, we did notice, or his family did talk about, and we noticed on the film, it looked like he was probably under the influence of some kind of drug. Will that play a factor in if they can get anything legally from it? But at the end of the day, the family just wants somebody to be held accountable. They want people to know that he existed. Absolutely crazy case, y'all. Let me know your thoughts on that situation. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. Let's go over into one more topic for today. And it looks like we got some more details about the man who was killed by the Frontier Airlines plane. We actually hear about who he is. So let's get over into it and see what we find out. Of course, we'll go over to the AI breakdown after this just to wrap it all up. But let's get over into it and see what we can find out, y'all. So a man captured in a surveillance video being fatally struck by the Frontier airplane on May 8th has been identified. "41-year-old Michael Mott. He jumped the fence at 11:19.
Following an on-scene investigation, a post-mortem examination, we have determined that the cause and manner of death. The cause of death is multiple blunt and sharp force injuries. The manner of death is suicide.
Okay, so he had several run-ins with the law, racking up over 20 arrests in Colorado dating back from 2002, including an attempted murder charge. Oh, hold on. So his most recent arrest was for felony trespassing just 1 month before he jumped the fence. "140 miles per hour, y'all. That's how fast the plane was traveling." Let's get over into the AI breakdown just to find out a little bit more information about this. So let's get over into it. So we know it happened on May 8th. The incident happened where it was carrying 224 passengers and 7 crew members. It happened around 11:19 where it was traveling at 140 miles per hour. The individual was sucked into one engine. The impact sparked an engine fire, causing smoke to fill the cabin. So we know Denver medical examiner identified him as 41-year-old Michael Mott. Authorities ruled his death as a suicide. Thermal surveillance cameras showed him scaling the 8-foot perimeter fence topped by barbed wire in just 15 seconds. He walked calmly into the path of the aircraft 2 minutes later. Although ground detection sensors triggered an alarm when Mott approached the fence, airport security personnel checking the cameras initially misidentified the movement as a herd of deer. What do you mean, a herd of deer? But all right. So the agency and the National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration are actively investigating the security breach and evacuation procedures. My question is, why do they think suicide? Is it because of how calmly he walked over there? Why do they think suicide? See, it didn't even read my... See, they don't even see. This is why you gotta... Hold on, y'all. So officials have ruled the runaway death of 41-year-old Michael Mott a suicide based on the totality of the investigation, which combined physical evidence and video surveillance and his deliberate actions. They have classified as so he scaled the 8-meter fence with barbed wire. Investigators noted that he cleared the obstacle in just 15 seconds without tools, showing intent to enter a hazardous restricted area. They show him calmly walking directly to the runway after runway 17 left. He purposely stepped into the path of the accelerated Frontier Airlines Airbus as it bared towards him at 140 miles per hour. Mott was not an airport employee and has no legal, logical, or accidental reason for being on the tarmac. So it looks like the only reason they suspect suicide is because of him jumping into it or walking into the path of it. They haven't discovered any suicide notes. It could have been an accident, or an accident as in why he didn't think he was going to get hit. He was trying to sneak in, of course. Maybe to steal something, maybe to do something else illegal. But it might not be that he was intending to die. But that's what they're classifying it as. But we finally have an identification of who the person is who was struck by the Frontier Airlines. See, the Spirit or Frontier, always something crazy going on. But let me know your thoughts on that situation, y'all. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. Absolutely crazy, y'all. But that is it for the show today. Y'all. Thank you for tuning in now. Thank you for tuning in later. We talk about a lot of crazy things. So if you disagreed with anything I say, please leave a comment. I'm never going to say I'm always right. I'm never going to say I understand everything. But I'm willing to talk about it. But I will be back tomorrow. We go over 4 more topics of just things that we need to find out. But remember, y'all, the best way to show your support is always just to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. But you already know I got to play that outro. Peace, y'all.